Hi guys, this is Mr. Briggs, and I'm going to teach you guys how to take your rocket here, rocket that we are building. We should have rolled our tube by now, maybe put our fins on, and we need to build a nose cone. And we're going to build a nose cone of our own design using the 3D printer, but in order to get a really good solid fit, we need a really good accurate measurement. So, the first thing I'm going to do is get a measurement of the inside diameter. Now the inside diameter is the inside of my rocket. I want to make sure that that nose cone fits in there nice and snug. Now I'd rather have it a little on the loose side than too tight. It's going to be easier to just put some extra tape on it to make it thicker and fit better than it is to try to sand it down. So I'm going to kind of round down. So if I take this and measure my stick here, I get a measurement of about 18.7 millimeters, about 19. So I think a 19 millimeter one would probably do just fine, because most of us didn't roll our tubes too tight. And if I measure the inside diameter of my rocket, I'm getting in the neighborhood of around 20. So it feels like 19, maybe 18.5 would be a good fit for my internal diameter. But I want to also measure my external diameter. I need to make sure that that outside of the nose cone fits on the outside there and we get a nice streamlined shape. Okay, I don't want it all 18 because it'll just fall right through my rocket. So, if I'm measuring the external diameter, I am getting, of my particular rocket's kind of chunky, I'm getting an external diameter of about 23 millimeters. So, that's going to be different for everybody. The standard is, we use the dowel, but the outside is going to be different depending on the thickness of your rocket and how tightly you rolled your tube. So, I'm going to go to my stuff right here and answer those questions. My internal diameter was 18.5 millimeters. And I'm going to put that in red so it shows up better, and Mr. Briggs can edit that. I am using the third person here on myself. That's weird. And my external diameter here was, again, 23.5. Okay, so now I've got my dimensions here. I've got to do my design. So I'm going to go to Tinkercad.com, and Tinkercad is my favorite free, Price is Right, 3D design software. And I'm going to hit sign in, and I am not going to put in my email. I'm going to hit sign in using social providers and pick Google, since we are a Google school, and make sure we select our account. Takes a little second to get in, but once we're in, we've got our nice little dashboard, and I want to create a new design. Okay, now once you're in Tinkercad, we're going to think about how we want to design our nose cone. The first thing we want to do is take in a cylinder, and we want to make sure it's the right size. So I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to make sure that I am 18.5 on this edge, and 18.5 on that edge. Now this right now is 20 millimeters tall. That's 2 centimeters. And if I think about 2 centimeters, it's about, little under an inch. I think I can probably get by with 15 just fine. So I'm going to make it 15 tall. Now this is the base of my nose cone, right? So I need to build the top of my nose cone. I'm going to maybe pick a cone or a sphere, half sphere. I'm going to pick out a paraboloid. So I got my paraboloid right there. And I'm going to make mine just a little bit taller. And what I'm going to do is make sure that that matches my external dimension. My external dimension, remember, is 23.5. So I'm going to click that corner and make it 23.5 on this side and 23.5 on that side. Now, just like in woodworking or anything, I'm going to check my math. 23.5 on these, 18.5 on these. Now I've got to get these things lined up perfectly. So to get them lined up perfectly, we're going to use a tool that's in Tinkercad called the Align tool. Okay, so where we left off, we were going to align these using the Align tool. Now the Align tool, I like using the Align tool. I like having two shapes way far apart. But I got to get these things lined up perfectly. I don't want my rocket being lopsided, going one way or the other. So I'm going to select both of these shapes. And now I've got two shapes selected. And I'm going to go up here to the top where it says Align. Okay, it's right next to the Flip and other buttons. When I hit Align, I get this little viewer. And I can select one shape and decide how I want things aligned. I'm going to select my cylinder here and say I want it aligned on this axis. And I want it aligned on this axis. And now if I look at these two shapes, they are perfectly centered. They are perfectly aligned. The only thing that remains is to raise up my nose cone. So I'm going to take that nose cone, I'm going to grab the little cone that's at the top there and elevate that nose cone. And right here it tells me how far I am off the ground. I'm going to pick 14 off the ground. That means that these two shapes are touching. I want to really closely inspect these two shapes and make sure there's no gap. This is not something that is going to be printed in Imagination Land. I plan on printing it in real life. And if the shapes aren't touching, the print job is going to be all messed up. You're going to have a bunch of goop instead of a new cool nose cone. So I'm going to take these two shapes and I am going to group them. Now you need to decide, do you want a 2 or a 3? If you want a 2, it just means the rocket has to come back and come down. If that's the case, you're done. But if you want to get a 3, we need to have a way for this rocket to come back. So I need to put a string, I need to put a little bungee cord through the center of my rocket. So there's a couple ways I can do that. One of the easiest ways is to get a shape here like a torus. And I'm going to take that torus and I'm going to flip it around 90 degrees. And I'm going to make sure it is nice and chunky. And I'm going to lower it kind of halfway, a little more than halfway through the bottom. And I'm going to change it from a solid to a hole. Now what that's going to do, when I put it into my nose cone, and you'll notice I'm not being too exact with this part because this part is where we can be a little creative, is it's going to carve a hole out in my nose cone for me to put the string through. So I'm going to group those shapes, and now, as you can see, I've got this nice little hole that goes through my rocket, and I can fish a piece of string through there. Now, we run into another problem. Because this is a class, and we've got a lot of people in this class. The problem we run into is people get their nose cones mixed up. Mr. Briggs, someone stole my nose cone. I get that all the time. Well, I'm going to switch from basic shape here to text and numbers. And I'm going to put in some text, and I'm going to put in my initials. In my case, it's LB. And I'm going to shrink those down really small, and I'm going to make them a hole. And what I'm going to do is rotate that a little bit. Hit shift here so it's nice and aligned. And I'm going to put those letters inside the bottom of my nose cone right there. And I'm going to group. And what's that going to do? Well, that carves my name into the nose cone, and nobody can say that's my nose cone. It also means that if this rocket gets lost, we can get it back to you. So, you have your name on there, you have a ring through there. This has now become a 4 as a nose cone grade. We need to turn it in, though, to get credit. So first thing I'm going to do is change it from this super dupe GUT, or whatever random name they give you, to your name and the hour, so that I know whose product this goes to. After I've done that, I'm going to hit export. And that lets me 3D print it. Well, I want to 3D print it as an STL file, stereolithography file. So I downloaded that file right here. Okay, just downloaded. And I'm going to go to my Google Classroom. Now, This isn't the assignment, but it is going to show you how to add it. And I'm going to hit Add File. And when you hit Add File, you can drag your download in, or you can hit the Upload button and try to find that file. And what it's going to do is put that file into Classroom, and as soon as it's uploaded, you hit the Turn In button, and that alerts me that your nose cone is ready to print. I will only print nose cones that have your name in it. I will only print nose cones that are an STL file. Okay? So, have fun designing your nose cone, make some really cool designs, and hopefully it'll be a blast. Haha, that's my rocket joke. Have a good one.